So I'm here in the Irish National War Memorial Gardens in Island Bridge in Dublin. So you might be seeing this on some of my short videos before, but I thought I'd do a little bit of a walk around. So this is the main garden area, the main memorial area. And there's two gardens, one over in that entrance and then one in that entrance. We'll walk over to one of them now in a minute. But this was the construction of this, well, the planning of the construction of these gardens started in 1919, just after the end of World War One, to commemorate the Irish men and who were in the British Army at the time, because Ireland was part of the UK, and they volunteered to fight in the British Army. So over 49,500 men died. So that would have been, this is dedicated to them here, 49,400 Irish men who gave their lives in the, we'll go over here, probably can't read that, but anyway, in the Great War 1914 to 1918. And then you have this big cross. So it was originally designed to commemorate the First World War, but obviously then the Second World War took over. Construction started in the 30s and 40s, but due to the political climate of Ireland gaining its independence at the time, the financing wasn't always forthcoming, so it was built and then neglected until the 80s. So I had a follower on TikTok mentioned it, because he lives in the area, said that during the 70s and 80s this was all just rubbish and a dumping ground, so it like falling apart. I'm not sure what it actually looked like then, but during the 80s and 90s the areas all around Dublin started to be rejuvenated, so there was money put into actually commemorating the men who had fought. So there was something in the region of 50,000 died, and somewhere in the region of 240,000 men volunteered. So the names live it forevermore. So this is very similar to commemorations and memorial parks you can see around the UK and then across France. So just a little thing, the roll of honour for the men who died, and maybe the ones that were injured, are actually inside these pillars or pergolas or something is what they're called. So there's four of them. It's like a mirror image on both sides. So inside there is the roll of honour of the men who died during the Great War. So it's mainly to commemorate the First World War, but then there was inscriptions added for the Second World War for those who decided to join and volunteer for the British Army in the Second World War. And you might be wondering why a lot of Irish men joined the British Army if we were looking for independence. Well, before the 1916 Easter Rising, quite a lot of people would have been happy with Home Rule, which would have been governance in the style of, say, Scotland or Wales. So they have their own government, but like the leading legislation would come from London. But events such as 1916 and then the War of Independence changed that. But a lot of people joined the British Army in the hopes of gaining favour and for Home Rule to be passed, which it had been, but then other events took place. But that's another type of history. So that's the entrance in. Supposedly you can go in, but I don't know who you're supposed to ask for a key for. This is the view just out onto the memorial garden itself, and then the memorial park, and then here you have the gardens. Oh. So they're the gardens, and they're maintained by the Office of Public Works, so they take care of gardens and historical buildings across the country. So I think it was built and funded by the Irish government, and maybe some funding came from the British government, but it's maintained by the Office of Public Works. And then we'll walk out into the main area. So this is just more of a standard park, and it's all dog friendly, so you can bring your dogs here, let them wander around, and then the park itself runs along the River Liffey, so there's a lot of people always out rowing their boats and practicing, so rowing along the River Liffey here. There's a lot of docks or little boat houses. So this is what it looks like. I'll walk down this way. So that's the main in there. So there's two like flower beds, flower gardens, and then the main ceremonial area for World War One and World War Two. And then the rest of it is just an open park, which is nice on days like this. So I don't think you can swim in the river, I wouldn't recommend it, but there's lots of boats, running, joggers, people out walking their dogs, and it's nice and calm. And then the entrance from the Chapel Lizard side has rugby and Gaelic football grounds, so if you're coming to train or play, a lot of people will go there. And then in the centre there is this pergola, I think it's called, or just column, and I'm not sure what the artistic name of it would be, but I'm sure there is one. But the grounds itself was originally, there's a couple of like little notice boards for the history, and it was there was parts of it were a Viking burial ground, because the River Liffey wouldn't have been where Dublin city centre is now. Obviously the River Liffey would have went through, but this would have been another part. There was an area in where the county council buildings are that it would have been the centre of the Viking settlements, and then they believe out here might have been a burial ground, or was a burial ground for sure for some, and they're doing some sort of construction work up here. That's called Cenothope or something. If anyone knows what it's called in the comments, you can let me know. But I thought I'd just give a quick rundown of that area. I'm not sure of the entire Viking history, so I can't give a whole lot, but it was a burial ground. There's not a whole lot to mark it. That cross, I believe, might have been a marking point for some of the Viking bits, but that's about it. But I'll leave you there. Bye.